The canister hisses open. White smoke rolls low across the ground at Homestead Two. And for the first 10 seconds, it does exactly what it should. It follows the slope. It drifts with the breeze, standard atmospheric behavior, exactly what you'd expect from a basic wind mapping test. Homestead 2 isn't a random patch of land. It sits inside a location with a documented history, one already mapped by LiDAR, already flagged in earlier survey data. That's why the team is here. They're not looking for smoke. They're looking for what the smoke can reveal about the terrain underneath it. Then it stops following the wind. The smoke curls back on itself. It hesitates, hangs, then moves against the direction the gauges are reading. Dr. Travis Taylor watches it happen in real time, and his focus sharpens visibly. Nobody on the team reaches for an explanation yet. That's the discipline here. No guesses, not until the instruments back it up. Is it a pocket of trapped air, a thermal layer nobody accounted for, or something in the ground itself shaping the airflow above it? Before anyone can settle on an answer, a radio crackles. It's not coming from Homestead 2. Somewhere else on the property, sensors that had been sitting quiet all morning have just triggered on their own at the exact moment the smoke broke pattern. 2 screens, 2 locations, 1 moment. On the left, Homestead. 2, live feed, smoke still curling against the wind. On the right, a secondary location's automated surveillance. One that, until now, had been recording nothing but a quiet, unremarkable baseline. Then the baseline breaks. The secondary sensors register a deviation. Not a glitch, not a dropout, a genuine departure from what they'd been reading moments before. And the timestamp lines up with the exact window. The smoke shifted direction at Homestead 2. Radios crackle with calibration checks. Someone asks for a second confirmation. Nobody on the team is willing to call this a connection. Not yet. That's not how this works. Professional skepticism kicks in immediately. Check the equipment first. Question the data before you question reality. Here's the problem. The 2 locations are far enough apart that any direct physical link between them seems, on its face, implausible. Whatever caused the deviation at one site shouldn't have any way of reaching the other. Not through wind, not through any conventional mechanism the team can name. And yet the timing isn't loose. It isn't somewhere around the same time. It lines up close enough that calling it coincidence starts to feel like its own kind of leap. That's the paradox sitting in front of the team now. The distance says these 2 events can't be related. The timing says they have to be. Both can't be comfortably true at once, but the instruments aren't lying and neither reading has been thrown out. So which number do you trust? The one that says impossible or the one that says exact? Nobody at Homestead 2 has an answer yet. But somewhere in that gap between distance and timing, the investigation just found its next question. 2 logs, side by side, same timestamp format, same second-by-second precision, and no obvious link between them except the moment they both flagged. Back at Command Center, the team starts working through possibilities out loud. Could this be a geological conduit? Some kind of subsurface pathway carrying pressure or gas between the 2 points? Could it be an atmospheric wave, something moving through the air itself rather than through the ground? Each idea gets floated, and each one gets picked apart before anyone commits to it. Nobody reaches for a conclusion. That's the pattern here. List the possibilities, stress test them, move on if they don't hold. Premature answers don't survive long in this room. Then someone pulls up something older, buried in logs from a previous season. There are gaps, small, unexplained interruptions in the data that the team had noted at the time and then set aside. Back then, they'd been filed away as noise, sensor drift, nothing worth chasing. Now, looking at them again, next to what just happened at Homestead Two, those old gaps don't look so easy to dismiss. Were they the same phenomenon showing up months earlier and going unrecognized? Or is that pattern matching after the fact? Seeing a connection because they're primed to look for one now? The team can't answer that yet. What they can do is go back, pull the old data, compare it second by second against what they're seeing today. If those two seasons are telling the same story, this isn't a one-time event. It's a pattern nobody caught the first time. One by one, the team starts working through the list. Equipment timing is reviewed first. The calibration screens show steady timestamps. No drift, no lag that could explain what they recorded. Weather data comes next, compared against regional reports. Thermal inversion looked like the strongest candidate going in, given how the smoke behaved. But the numbers don't fully close the gap between what the models predict and what actually happened on the ground. Environmental interference gets evaluated last. If something in the surroundings were throwing off the sensors, it should show up in the readings themselves. It doesn't. The team pauses. Then someone says what everyone's been circling. No single explanation accounts for both the smoke behavior and the second sensor event. Not one of them covers the full picture. Each theory might explain a piece, but never the whole thing at once. In candid interviews, the frustration is visible. Not frustration at each other, frustration at the process itself, at how many boxes have to be checked before you're allowed to say, I don't know yet. This is what real investigation looks like. Less discovery, more elimination, slow, deliberate, unglamorous. The team works through the most likely conventional explanations. None fully accounts for the combination of observations recorded that day. And that changes the nature of the question they're asking. It's no longer just what happened out there. It's becoming a harder problem. What tool captures a phenomenon that keeps slipping past the ones you already trust? If today's data won't fit the existing models, the next step isn't another theory. It's asking whether the ranch has shown this behavior before. Pull up the property map and the team begins looking for recurring patterns. Mark the zones where controlled experiments have been deployed. Then mark the zones where unexplained activity showed up afterward. In several cases, they don't overlap. The activity doesn't happen where the team was looking. It shows up somewhere else shortly after. Viewed together, the events raise a question. Are these isolated coincidences or early signs of a broader pattern? In a broader context statement, a senior investigator lays out what that question could mean if the pattern holds up under scrutiny. Not as a conclusion, as a possibility the data now puts on the table. One possible interpretation is that the location of unusual activity changes during or after controlled experiments. But whether that's a genuine behavior or simply coincidence remains unresolved. The team is careful not to skip past that distinction. It's the same discipline that's carried every section so far. Question the pattern before you trust it. Still, if the interpretation holds, it reframes the entire investigation. This wouldn't be about hunting inert coordinates on a map, checking each one until something registers. It would mean the phenomenon, whatever it is, doesn't stay put while it's being measured. And if that's true, a harder question follows. Not, what is this? Something the team can't fully shake once it's been asked. If it's responding to observation, responding to them, then the question stops being about identity. It becomes about intent. The sun drops behind the ridge. Cameras switch over, first to night vision, then to thermal grids as the ranch settles into quiet. Equipment gets secured. The team runs one more pass through the day's data, checking it against itself before anyone calls it finished. Here's what the investigation actually established. An unusual smoke pattern at Homestead Two, one that broke from the wind gauges without a clear cause. An unexpected reading at a second location registering in that same narrow window. And no equipment failure, no calibration error, no routine explanation that fully accounts for both events happening together. That's the confirmed record. Everything past that, the timing, the displacement, the possibility that something responded to being observed, stays exactly where it belongs, unresolved. The experiment produced real data. It didn't produce a definitive answer, and the team isn't pretending otherwise. But the data does point somewhere. If this phenomenon is capable of shifting or responding beyond a single location, future investigations may need to monitor multiple areas of the ranch at the same time. Only broader testing can determine whether today's observations were an isolated coincidence or part of a larger pattern still waiting to be understood. If you enjoy evidence-first investigations that separate confirmed observations from speculation, consider subscribing. We'll continue following every verified development from Skinwalker Ranch, breaking down the science, the experiments, and the questions that remain unanswered. Because on Skinwalker Ranch, every experiment may answer one question while quietly creating three more.